Welcome back to the Rebuilt Parish podcast. This week, we are kicking off a series all about finance and stewardship. And how do we love kicking off series? We love to bring Ed Bradley in to help set the tone and help start the trajectory for how your parish can grow in finance and stewardship. I can't wait for you to hear all of the great things Ed has to say. And trust me, when you hear about his background in finance and stewardship and how he made this very room we're sitting in happen as part of a capital campaign, you're going to want to learn so much more about this. Join us right here inside the episode. Today, we're setting the table for our Finance and Stewardship series. Just like we did with our Rebuilt Strategic Anchors series, we had Ed Bradley come in and set the table for us. So today, we've got Ed Bradley back in the house. Thank you, Ed, for joining us.
Well, it's always a pleasure. Great to be with you again. I enjoy these.
Well, we love getting to hear all of your expertise. So I guess my first question for you is, where do we start when we talk about finance and stewardship?
Well, we start with the idea that finance and stewardship, right? I think we want to provide a little bit of clarity for your audience as we go through this series, and you're gonna have a number of podcasts around it, certainly. But when people hear stewardship, they often think time, talent, and treasure, right?
Right.
This isn't that.
Oh.
This is a money series. And so just we want to just make that clear that this is all about all things money and financial in the parish.
So you like talking about money?
Nobody likes talking about money, certainly. But at the same time, I will say I'm comfortable around it. And I do have, from a professional perspective, some background in that regard. I had a long capital markets career, an MBA, finance, background, and so a facility, if you will, around the topic, if you will. But that's the money topic secularly, right? In the spiritual realm, I have a 10-year, history now as the stewardship director in a parish. But maybe more importantly, so that brings some credibility to that. We're sitting in, a beautiful facility where, I was very involved in a capital campaign to raise, $16 million plus, for this. So I have some background in it, right, and some facility for it. But also my own personal faith walk is very connected to my attitude about money. I was a money guy, but I had to get my heart right around money and develop a spirit of giving, and it's when that heart softened in that regard is when my personal faith walk really ramped up. So hopefully I bring both the secular and the spiritual sort of credibility to the topic, shall we say.
So you're not afraid to talk about money, which is good because we've got parish leaders and pastors here who know they should talk about money, but they just don't know how. So What about them? What are you going to share with them today?
And I think we have to start with the reality that it is hard, and money is hard. Jeremy's helping us out here today. So we invited Jeremy to come on, tell us how much money he makes and what he's saved for retirement. No, nobody does that, right? Nobody talks like, nobody wants to make the ask. It is hard. It is hard. But maybe there's a better way. We in parishes, we often have a million fundraisers, or we talk about money uncomfortably and maybe lay some guilt and do some things like, what are we good at talking about in a parish? We're good at talking about praying.
Right.
We're good at talking about serving as Jesus served. We're good at talking about the sacraments and partaking in them. We're good at talking about or encouraging people to share their faith with others. So what if we talked about money the same way, right? And if we're already good at talking in discipleship language, let's talk about money in discipleship language.
So how do we do that? Is there a connection between money and discipleship? And what does that look like?
I guess the first way to answer that would be maybe, all right, you make the connection between money and discipleship. Well, we're disciples of Jesus. Did Jesus talk about money? Did Jesus care about money? And, it turns out he did. Yeah, and he did decidedly. One place to look at that are the stories that Jesus told, the parables, 39 or 40 parables in Matthew and in other places. 16 of them are about money and possessions. So Jesus talked a lot about money. He knew he was in competition with stuff and money for our hearts. And so, in fact, he did talk a lot about it. And there are a lot of scriptural stories, and opportunities in the lectionary to talk about it. There is a strong connection between money and discipleship. And Tom Corcoran is going to be on next week, I think, and he'll take a deep dive into discipleship and to scriptural underpinning, and he'll talk about a guide for giving and principles parishes should follow. So I don't want to preempt too much about that. I think for our purposes right now is to unquestionably say there's a strong connection between money and discipleship. We're good at talking about money and discipleship, so let's make that connection. So I think the way for pastors to think about it is, I am not in the business of raising money in my parish. And you hear, Ed, what are you talking about? No, we are in the business of raising givers.
Yes.
And if we can change the culture in the parish around money and develop a culture of raising givers, the money will follow.
Right.
So that's sort of the central theme of our conversation here today.
So let's talk about how we can make that connection.
Yeah, I just used the phrase cultural change. So that may sound daunting, and on some level it is, but cultural change comes with sort of a couple of things. It comes with time. So the first thing to remember is, how do we go about this? Is to be patient with yourselves and understand that it will take a little bit of time. You're not going to change a culture around one homily. Right. And the first time you talk about money and discipleship, and oh, by the way, you need to talk about money and discipleship when you're not making an ask.
Right.
But the first time you do it, people are going to be like, oh, he just wants my money. So you have to sort of give yourself that break and understand that it's going to take some time. All right, so the first thing is time, but don't shy away from opportunities in the lectionary. Very often I will say that our inclination might be, boy, that's a challenging homily. That's a challenging gospel today. So what am I going to talk about today? But you got to lean into those moments where the rich ruler or other places, or the rich fool and the shrewd manager, and they're where it's a challenging topic, but make the connection to discipleship when you're not asking for anything. And if you do that consistently over time, hearts will change. All right. The other thing is, so lean into the lectionary, give yourself time, but then you also have to be consistent. That's the other thing, time and consistency. And that consistency of language on your website, in your homilies, on your stewardship card, in your bulletin, website, videos that you send out should have a consistent language around discipleship and money that people come to know and can, then you're well down the path of changing the culture around money.
So you're saying to use this language. Tell me a little bit more about this language.
Yeah, I would say, okay, the language, clarity and consistency, and make it easy, and like everything we call upon people to do, you also want to set people up for success and help them understand it, make it accessible, all those things when we talked about the steps of discipleship back in the Grow Deeper anchor, have low rungs on the ladder that you can sort of make accessible and then grow in. So what are the accessibility elements? What's the clarity of language? Okay. People need to first understand, I'm going to now talk about an idea, a concept called the 4 P's of giving, okay? And I'll add a fifth P at the end, but really, there are four primary themes. The first thing to understand is that, before I said, the pastor's talking about money, he just wants my money. The first thing to teach people is, by the way, it's not your money.
Right.
Psalm 24, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. We are stewards of some resources that God's given to you, God's given to me for us to steward, to shepherd, to be a trustee over. So as trustee, we should give back to God some of the gifts that God has given to us.
Right.
So the first P is we need to plan our giving. Giving should be part of the family budget. It should be part of our plan. We should give back to God some of the resources for his work, some of the resources he's given for us. The first P is plan. But it shouldn't only be part of our plan. It should be a priority in that plan. That's the second P, priority. Why should it be a priority? Psalm 3:9. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all you produce. First fruits, the first thing. So it's a priority in this plan. So that allows you, when you talk about it's part of your plan and it should be a priority in your plan, one way to execute on those is that your giving can be electronic to your parish. That's a segue between the spiritual and the pragmatic in terms of parish giving. Make it encourage people to become an electronic giver, and there are a lot of benefits to that in terms of the ability of the parish to plan their activities for the year, because you have some, clearer knowledge of the offertory base that you're going to be able to work with and all that. So electronic giving has a lot of sort of pragmatic benefits. But the other thing electronic giving establishes is 100% attendance at Mass, right? In a world where people are coming to a regular Catholic instead of like 3.1 times a month is now like defined as 2.3 times a month or whatever. From a giving perspective, it can be 100% if they're an electronic giver. Plan, priority. So those are the first two Ps. Now we start to move into how do we set people up for success in that. The third P is to try to teach parishioners to be percentage givers. Yes. And now there is a biblical underpinning to this, which is that T word in terms of in Malachi and other places where, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. T is tithe, and that's 10%. Okay, that for some might be a high, daunting place to give. Well, let's set parishioners up for success and say, become a 1% giver or a 2% giver. So become a percentage giver and start to think that way. And then, importantly, the fourth P, progress. And then learn to grow in your giving, progress, increase your giving over time. So maybe you start at 1%, but you learn I can be a percentage giver. Right. And then next year I can grow or progress in my giving. I'll become a 2% giver. So those are the four Ps of giving. And if you can consistently articulate those and flip that switch for people, boy, the giving will follow. The giving will follow. Now, there is a fifth P potentially.
I'm waiting to hear what this fifth P is.
And the important fifth P is that, again, making the spiritual connection, that you should always be encouraging your congregation to be praying about their giving. And so, it really should be the 5 Ps of giving. In all respects, we pray about our giving. So those are the 4 Ps of giving, and that's the language you can use, and we would just encourage you to do that.
So good. Well, we've talked about so much so far. So could you just help give a quick summary on what we've just talked about before we start moving into some of those bigger pieces? Yeah.
Okay. So the crescendo thing is really we in a parish are in the business of raising. We're in the business of forming disciples, right? Yes. And so we should talk about money the same way. A disciple serves, a disciple shares their faith, a disciple prays, a disciple does other things, but a disciple also gives. And it's part of their plan. It's a priority in their plan. I'm a percentage giver, and I grow my giving over time because I want to grow as a disciple. Right. So that's the synopsis. We're in the business of raising givers. If you can flip that cultural shift, if you can flip that cultural switch, and the giving will follow, and you're well on your way to, having a healthy, economic parish.
Right. So by using all of that language and by really teaching your parishioners that this is a part of discipleship, this is not, we're just asking for money because we need it. We're asking for money because you need it as a disciple. That's part of that growth.
You need to be a giver.
Yes.
Right? Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, we've talked about a lot, but now let's talk about, this is going to be the scary part for some parish leaders and some pastors, but we know we have to ask for money at some point. So we're going to talk a little bit more about making the ask in one of our following podcast episodes, but maybe you could help set us up for that. How do we ask for money?
Yeah, it can be tough. First, and so remember, again, frame it in discipleship language where you're comfortable and you want to live in there. But also there are a few principles to remember with regard to making the ask. First and foremost, one rule of making the ask is don't, and this is good because I don't want to do it that often. Don't do it very often, right? You don't want to have a million fundraisers. You don't want to be asking all the time. You want to, because you want to shape this mindset in the culture of your parish, is that I give to my parish as an act of worship in my place of worship, and I'm a percentage giver, and I give it over time, and it's a priority in my plan. So I'm an electronic giver. So you don't need to talk about it that much if you flip that switch and that is all happening. That's all just happening, right? But that's it. So don't do it very often. Do it at Stewardship Sunday. Teach people that they should make that annual commitment to make that gift to their parish for the year ahead. You're going to talk a little bit about executing a Stewardship Sunday and how to go about that. There's also you do that in your workshop. I do it in courses in Rebuild Parish. So Stewardship Sunday is a really important thing. Try to really focus your ask at that moment. That's number one. But now, what do people give to? And what are some principles in terms of, from a big picture, to make the ask? I want to invest in things that are making a difference. I want to invest in helping people and changing lives. So I am going to want to hear about that. So as we make the ask, we want to prepare people's hearts for the ask. And how do we prepare their hearts? We touch them emotionally. We cast vision. We make clear where we're going as a parish. And so people are going to want to get on board that ship, right? We talk about the life change that's happening in the parish. We share the wins that are going on in a parish. So we prepare their hearts, touch them emotionally, convince them that their investment in the work of the parish is changing lives and making a difference. People want to make a difference. So let's give them that ammunition by preparing their hearts. But we also have to make giving easy. So let's make sure that if we have a stewardship card, it's very simple to fill out, or if there's an online form, there's very few clicks. So let's make sure, and let's also, so we're preparing their minds. What's the theme for a giving moment, or what's the reason behind it? So and then make it very easy to execute, so that they don't have to think about it very hard, right? So that's the practical side of making the ask, is making it easy for people. So prepare their hearts and prepare their minds. And don't do it very often.
Don't do it often. Well, you talked a little bit about casting vision and sharing some of the wins. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and this is something we take pretty seriously, I think, in Rebuild Parish, or we take it very seriously at Nativity. And in fact, there's a wins meeting on Mondays that surrounds sort of the staff lunch and the pastor's meeting. There is a moment where we share wins from the weekend. And there's some important reasons to do that. I think a first reason is because it's fun, and it fuels us and encourages us in our work, to in real time be remembering sort of moments, winning moments. And so you want to be on a winning team. You want to have win, so that's important, but it's also important to have the antenna up about capturing wins. If you're doing this often, you're getting good at sort of seeing them in the moment and capturing them. And you should write these things down, and you should remember them with your team, and should have systems for that, so that when the time comes to make the ask, you have this inventory of wins to be sharing with the congregation to fuel their hearts to make the gift, right? So celebrating wins is part of, and sharing those wins is a process, and you get better and better at capturing those wins to then be in a position to share them.
That's so good. Well, as we start to wrap it up, what do we need to remind everybody of?
Okay, so as we go into this series, if you will, I would say that there are two primary themes. The first, spiritual, the second, practical. The spiritual theme, we're not in the business of raising money. We're in the business of raising givers. We're in the discipleship business as a parish. Conduct your business around all things money in the exact same way, with discipleship language and with a disciple's heart. So make the giving, make your attitude, we're raising givers, not raising money. Discipleship. The second's practical. We need money to do our work, right? So we do have to make the ask. So when we make that ask, we just remember people give to vision, give to impact. Let's give them that. So prepare people's hearts, prepare people's minds, and you're going to be well on your way to having a healthy parish.
That's so good. Well, Ed, you've shared so many great tips for us. I would love to know, what rebuilt resources would you recommend for parishes who are looking to really amp up their stewardship?
We mentioned the workshop. You're going to be doing things, so just call people's attention to Wednesdays, with Rebuilt, or the Wednesday workshops, and look for that on the Rebuilt Parish website. Sign up for those, participate in that. We have online courses that we talk about, sort of the rebuilt model. We talk about small groups. We also talk about money in a parish, finance and stewardship. And so there is what we call an equip course, rebuiltparish.com, content, the online courses, the equip courses. There is one, finance and stewardship. Inside of Rebuilt Parish coaching, when we come alongside a parish and walk with them through the implementation of their parish renewal ideas. We talk about finance and stewardship in a course in there, and inside the Rebuilt Parish coaching as well. So, this is a very important topic, and it should be in many places, and so we try to deliver the resources that make it easier for parishes to deal with the money topic, which is a tough one.
It's a tough one, especially when there are so many dioceses that have declared bankruptcy. As of late, these parishes need to have those resources to help keep them going.
And that gets into a whole nother sort of a realm, but and that's a reality, and that's a challenging reality. But at the same time, parishes can be separate corporately and can be distanced a little bit from that. And if you can make that case of discipleship and giving to your local parish as an act of worship, in my place of worship, that can take that conversation to the parish level and a little bit away from some of the maybe more macro issues that might be going on.
For sure. Now, Ed, what you didn't share is something incredible about the upcoming workshop and about the Equip course, is that you're there. So you're going to be our subject matter expert talking about Stewardship Weekend. So they get to deep dive into that.
Is that good news or bad news?
That is great news for them. Okay. And then when we talk about the Equip course, you're the one teaching that course. Right.
As Stewardship Director at Nativity, and as I said up at the beginning, this is kind of near and dear to my heart. So I guess I was a logical person to be the the leader of the Equip Finance and Stewardship course. So I was happy to do that and honored to do that. Yep.
And seeing the inside of it, it's just beautiful. And there are so many incredible key points and learnings and tools that you share for parishes.
Yeah, we're touching on it here, right? So, when you get into an Equip course, you're getting into what are the, some of the stewardship one-on-one techniques in terms of what does the thank you note program look like, and what are the ways to be thinking about that? What are the ways to engage your high capacity givers? What's the budget process look like in the parish, and what's the right timing cycle for that? And how do you incorporate priorities in the parish into the budget? And the budget shouldn't just be last year plus 2% across the board. Right. And so, there's a lot of nuance to some of those elements. We will get into the full conduct of a stewardship Sunday, and the weeks leading up to it, and what's the right communication strategy around some of those things, and when's the right time to drip at different elements of your messaging to them throughout the stewardship. We do get into a capital campaign and the whole process of a well-orchestrated capital campaign. That's not necessarily relevant for all parishes, but we'll touch on that. And then you get into a whole annual stewardship plan, and what's that stewardship plan look like in the context of a broad parish plan. So again, connecting the dots between the finance side and some of the other operating elements of the parish and other ministry elements of the parish. So anyway, a quick commercial on that. I talked too long about it, but you get the idea.
It's so good. It's so good. Well, I just want to share just a couple of other resources that we've got. So in front of you, do you want to hold up that book right there? So this is Church Money. This is a great resource. It's a great place to start for parishes, but we also have a free resource that we're going to have linked in the show notes for everybody, and that is all about the 6 people to get involved in stewardship and finance in your parish and how they can help and what their roles look like. So that's going to be in the show notes for everybody.
Excellent.
All right. Well, Ed, thank you once again for helping us to kick off a new workshop series or new podcast series. And we're so excited we get to have you on the workshop too.
I look forward to it, Melissa. Great to be with you.
Thanks, Ed.